Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Our long-term test Ford Maverick Hybrid has reached the milestone of 30,000 miles over a year and a half. So we're going to do a check-in here today and talk about what it's really been like to live with. All right, my friends, first of all, let me get the elephant out of the room. My voice is kind of messed up. I have COVID right now. It took me 3.5 years to finally get it, but rest assured I am isolating by myself out here in the desert and I'm on the mend, so I'm doing fine. But that said, let's talk about the truck. Our long-term test Ford Maverick Hybrid XL started out as a base model with steel wheels, the only option on it being the trailer hitch receiver. And I was one of the lucky ones that got one early, and my base price was $19,995. Now, if you order a 2024, you're going to pay about $25,000 for a new one. The price has gone up quite a bit. But that said, let's talk about what my experience has been with this truck so far. Now, over 30,000 miles, I have kept very close track of the fuel economy, measuring at the tank every time I do a fill up, looking at the odometer, doing the calculations. And over that 1.5 years and 30,000 miles, my fuel economy is 40.1 mpg. I have reported as high as 47 mpg at certain points in times in our videos, and that basically is talking about the winter time when the temperatures are low and I'm not using air conditioning. If you look at the graph that's on the screen, you'll see that when the temperatures get high, especially here in Arizona, 115, 117, 118, the fuel economy tanks on these hybrids. And we have a whole video on our playlist linked at the end that talks about why that happens. But when I talk about a 40.1 annualized average, it's over the year. And so if I were to go the rest of the season into the winter again and have a full 2-year average, that would probably bump back up to about 41, 42, because right now it's weighted by 2 summers and only 1 winter. That said, still very good, much higher than what the window sticker promised me, which was 37 mpg combined. Basically, it's been a very fuel efficient truck. It's made good financial sense for me in that way. So the next topic is wear and tear. How has this truck been for reliability, wear and tear, and how is it holding up? Well, I just have done the most recent service interval on it, and I will tell you that the brakes are at 60%. And so if you look down in there, you can see that the rotors are wearing nice and smooth. I don't even have any grooves in there. And that's primarily because hybrids don't use brake pads nearly as heavily as regular vehicles do. A lot of the braking power is handled by regenerative braking. You know, the brakes tend to last a lot longer. So 60% still remaining on the brakes at 30,000 miles. I don't have any leaks anywhere. Oddly enough, no squeaks or any kind of shuddering in the suspension. The suspension still feels very tight after all this time, and that is backed up by, a lot of going out here in the desert off-road, and so I treat it like a truck. And so it hasn't been living a completely clean life. And most of my driving, city driving, which tends to be harder on the brakes and the suspension, that's a pretty good level of wear patterning that I put this truck through to be able to say that it still feels pretty tight, just like new as I drive it around. The factory Continental Pro Contact tires lasted, about till now. I just replaced them recently, as you can see, and we'll talk about those new tires in a minute. But the tires were still within legal tread when I replaced them, but they were getting down there and maybe would have gone about another 4,000 or 5,000 miles. 35,000 miles is probably about the best the stock tires would have done for me. So the next question a lot of people always ask is, what about reliability? Have you had any problems with it? Well, there have been a few things. Nothing that's left me stranded on the side of the road. There has been the issue of the grabby brakes, which is a problem that most all of the hybrids have. It is a software and hardware problem with the electronic braking system. I have had it in for 2 different TSBs, which gave it new software, and they're still not perfect. They still tend to grab and tend to jerk a little bit at slow speeds. Even with the software repairs that have been done, I would still say Ford needs to do something to make this better, because even at its state currently, while it's much better than it was when I first got the truck, it is one of the worst braking experiences you're going to find in a hybrid vehicle out there. They're just not very good. They're not very refined in the way they work. Do they physically work well? Yes, but at slow speeds they can be just very kind of unrefined, is the best way to put it. Now, there have been a couple of recalls on this truck. One was the airbag recall. We talked about that last time. That's been done. There is the fire recall, which has got a lot of headlines, got a lot of people worried. And basically what that's about is there were a small handful of engines that were built at the factory that had machining issues that could cause them to blow up, fail. And so they haven't really been able to isolate which ones were problematic and which weren't. There was just a few, and I mean talking like 0.1%, less than 0.1%. But nonetheless, when those engines do blow up, they can cause a fire. And so on the first recall, what Ford did was try to mitigate, and so they put ventilation in by drilling holes in the bottom, removing shutters on the grill, and hopefully that would solve the problem. Well, everyone knows that's just a bunch of crap. That's not going to fix the problem. And so now they've issued a second recall, which I have gotten. It doesn't specify what the fix is yet, and we're supposed to find out around October what the fix is going to be. It could be anything from some different kinds of shielding that they're going to put in there to help prevent a fire if the engine blows up, or maybe even a new engine, I don't know, or somewhere in between. We're going to find out. It wouldn't shock me that they would do a new engine, because they have been able to isolate what date range, but that would be a pretty big move though. I mean, I guess it would shock me because that's a lot of money to spend, but really that's the only way to fix the problem. If they have a group of engines that could just explode at any minute, seems like the right thing to do would be to replace it. But nonetheless, there is more to come on that. There is a third thing that I've gotten, which is a letter, which is a consumer action notice, which basically talks about the 12-volt battery problem, which exists for some customers where the actual cable coming from the 12-volt battery to the main power input, that cable wasn't very well made, and sometimes the actual end of it can come loose and cause it to not work. And so they have a notice out to the dealerships to be looking for that when I bring this in. I've never had that problem myself, but a lot of people have. And basically they just replace the cable, and it's a new cable. So next time this goes to the dealership, that will probably get inspected. Now, another issue that's very popular with Maverick customers is rattles in the dash. A lot of people have rattles in the dash. I have rattles in the dash, had. And so what I found out in my own experimenting, and by that I mean I'm kind of a MacGyver-like kind of guy, so I was stuffing things in the dash, envelopes, straws, whatever it took to find out where that rattle was. And what I found out for me is that speaker grill. The speaker grill was the source of all of my rattling. And so at first I stuck an envelope in the corner next to the dash, and that stopped it. And eventually I graduated to a piece of 1/8 inch foam tape like you would use for pipe wrap. Carefully put it in there in that little gap, and that put enough tension on that it prevented the rattle, and it went away forever. I've been hearing stories of people that go to dealerships about their dash rattles, and the dealership goes, yeah, you have to leave that here for a week for us to find a rattle. Folks, if you get told that, that is the dealership's way of telling you to F off. They don't want to deal with that. So don't take that. Try stuffing an envelope in between the dash and the windshield, or in between the dash and the side pillar. Find the rattle. It's not that hard. That's been my way of handling it. Just DIY, try it yourself, see how it works. Now the next thing, you've been looking at this video probably so far going, this truck looks different. There's a few things that have been done to it. And we did a makeover last year, which was sort of a retro style striping, which Ford has actually kind of followed now. They're doing that on the Bronco Sport for 2024. Based off the concept vehicle that we originally got our inspiration for when we did our first makeover. And because it was vinyl, it was easy to take off. I'm doing another makeover right now, which is a bit more of an off-road look and feel, and actually has some extra capability going on now. And it started with a custom grille up front that looks very similar to a Raptor style. I'm not trying to make it a Raptor, I just like the way it looks. And some fender flares from Air Design, which are a Ford product you can get from them. And of course, the big thing that you can see here are some new tires and wheels, a plus size 245/65/17 Firestone Destination AT2 tires. And those are mounted to 17/8 LP Adventure LP5 wheels. The other thing you might notice is that the stance of the truck has improved. It's a little bit more level, and that is because I've added a 1-inch leveling kit from Zone Off-Road, which raises the front up a little bit. And that kit comes in a way that you can either do 3/4 or a full inch. Right now, I've only opted for the 3/4 inch option on that, which was fine because I'm front wheel drive only. I wanted to retain some of the handling characteristics that you do get from having it lower in front. And with the tire and wheel combination and that Zone Off-Road kit, I've gained an extra 1.25 inches of ground clearance at the front and a 1/2 inch at the rear, which gives me a lot more confidence bringing it out here to the wild to go around trail hunting and things like that. The new tires and wheels, we've done a whole video on that. Another change just made recently is the black infill lettering there on the tailgate. It used to be white when we had our last makeover scheme, and now to go with the current look, it is now black. Almost every other mod that you can see on this truck, we've got videos on those that you can see at our playlist, which is linked at the back. And those include the Kiko Sport Bar that you can see at the back, as well as the Oedro folding tonneau cover. All right, my friends, there you go. 30,000 miles with our long-term test Ford Maverick. Would I do it again? Definitely, definitely. It was on our buy it list. It stays on our buy it list. And even at the higher price of $25,000, I would buy this exact truck over again. I still think if you look at what's in the market space out there today, it is still not only sort of a unicorn, there's nothing else like it, but it's priced right. Definitely priced right, and even though it's not perfect, it's been a good vehicle for the money in a lot of ways, and it's been fun to play with. As you can see, we've got more to come with our overlanding makeover. Some graphics are coming from the back, and we're also working on doing something a little extra back there in the bed when it comes to overlanding gear and equipment, and I can't quite talk about all of that right now, but be watching. And to do that, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel right there, or you can see our Maverick playlist right there, which is one of the most comprehensive on YouTube. Over 70 videos as of today, all Maverick content, a lot of stuff to watch. Either way, stay tuned.